Hi, it's Nick Capozzi, and this is Razzball Radio on the Fantasy Sports Network. I'm joined now by head football editor over at Razzball, Jay Wrong. You can follow him on Twitter at JAY and we are going over some of the highlights from his rankings, which, of course, you can find at Razzball. We're talking running backs today. At number 39, you've got Trent Richardson. The expert consensus ranking, or ECR, has him at 27. Has he just broken your heart too much? Because I look at it that he's going to have an opportunity with a full camp in Indianapolis, and also just with Luck's continued emergence and improvement, there's going to be an opportunity for him to get some burn behind that line. What's the story there?
Yeah, I'm not sure, and I think that's the problem. I mean, maybe Cleveland knew something that we didn't when they traded him. I
That
mean,
he's
then
not
again,
that good?
right? I mean, maybe they did, maybe they did. I mean, the last time I think they did, we thought they were smart. They took Brady Quinn as an extra first rounder. So, with the Colts, full off season, a lot of people thought that it was the playbook issues. Maybe he needs a full season with Luck and the system. But I just, when you looked at him, he was slow. He didn't hit those holes. He didn't read things. He didn't get the proper reads. I can't trust him this season because I'm not sure what to make of him. That's the only thing.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Hard for me to argue, but if he's available in the 8th, ninth round, which he would project to go if you have him 39th, I would definitely scoop him up just for the upside because he could be a 3-down back. Let's shift over to New England. You've got Stephen Ridley, 34. That's much lower than most experts. Is your concern the case of fumbleitis he has, or is it going to be the Shane Vereen show in New England?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, obviously they need a regular back. I think Vereen will be more in play as a receiving option. But the biggest problems are the fumbles. And Bill Belichick, he has a tendency to want to pull him every time he does something like that. Now, some of those fumbles weren't his fault. The defenses, you got to give credit to them on a couple of them last season. But it's not like in the NFL there's no team without a defense except the Cowboys. So when the minute that he loses a fumble, which he probably will, then I think Brandon Bolden. I don't think Belichick will have a problem going to Bolden in that case, and that'll pretty much affect anybody who drafts him.
Fair enough. You've got Lamar Miller right around where everyone else has him at 33. Last year, he played behind one of the worst O-lines in football. There's a change at offensive coordinator, yet he still averaged 4 yards per carry. The real downfall there was his 2 touchdowns because Zach Stacy only had 3.9 average for the St. Louis Rams. Noshawn is already having surgery. Is there no upside here in your opinion?
Yeah, I think there is a lot of upside here, but the problem is I think there's no more value because you have Marino getting his knee scoped. You have a new OC for a balanced offense. You have an improving offensive line, which still is kind of a bad line. But still, I think people will his stock will raise so much that I don't think you're going to get a good deal on him. And, again, after last season, there are a lot of variables, but I still don't trust him this year.
I don't trust him either, but he's a guy that I might reach for just because of the upside there. Okay, we are talking rankings with Jay Wrong all week. You can follow him on Twitter at JWrong, J-A-Y Wrong. The full list of his rankings are available at Razzball.com. Okay. Hi, it's Nick Capozzi, and this is Razzball Radio on the Fantasy Sports Network. I'm joined right now by head football writer over at Razzball.com, Jay Wrong. You can follow him on Twitter at J-A-Y Wrong. The full list of his rankings, of course, are available on the website, but we are going through some highlights right now in the kind of Tier 3, Tier 2 range. You've got Run DMC 11 spots higher than most other experts. This guy's averaged 10 games played the last 3 years. What are you seeing there that I'm not?
Yeah, I mean, I still have him outside my top 30, and I think once you're in that area, you can, kind of pick and choose your moments of where you want to apply risk with certain guys. And I still like him just because the run blocking scheme in Oakland is something that he can have success with.
That's fair.
I think if he has a little health, obviously, which nowadays seems foolish, but it could happen. I think there's a way for him to be kind of a flex option, maybe a running back 2, if we're lucky. So. Once you get that deep into the draft, I'd be looking at him if you don't have to pay anything.
Are you not concerned about MJD cutting into some of the playing time?
I am, but I think it was always a timeshare when Michael Bush was there. So I think there'll be enough for them to deal with. You know, don't forget, Oakland, they will have an improved team. I mean, that's not saying much, but I think there is some upside there.
Yeah, I'm not big on Matt Shaw, but he should probably help the running attack. Okay, you're much higher on Andre Brown. You've got him 30 versus the expert consensus ranking, or ECR 57, and you're much lower on Arian Foster than everyone else. The consensus here is that Foster's got one big year left in him. Are you betting that Foster gets hurt and that's why you have Brown so high? Or are the Texans going to use, just because their passing game might be a disaster this year, are they just going to run?
Yeah, I mean, they're sort of a seesaw because it's like you said, with Arian Foster, I'm not high on him, which means I have to be high on Andre Brown just because he's the one who's going to benefit. And, the reason is simply because I don't like the back surgery that he had. I just don't like the situation at quarterback right now. And with the top tier running backs, I'm really risk adverse because I think if you get a running back and then he bombs, a la David Wilson or CJ Spiller, then it pretty much destroys your season. So with Foster, I'm staying away from just because of the inherent risk that he brings with him.
Okay, fair enough. And look, Andre Brown, when he had the opportunity in New York behind a not very good offensive line, did pretty well. Line's a lot better in Houston. Ben Tate at 22 is right around the expert consensus rankings. He never stayed healthy, and Terrence West has turned a lot of heads in camp in Cleveland. Which of the pair is going to be more effective in 2014?
Yeah, he seems to have a habit of breaking his ribs a lot. With Ben Tate, he's just not exciting to me. I think he's kind of a mediocre back who's going to get, some playing time. When it comes down to between him and West, I'd rather just take West late in the draft for that higher upside.
All right, he is Jay Rung. He is the head football editor over at Razzball.com. You get his full list of rankings right there. Hi, it's Nick Capozzi, and this is Razzball Radio on the Fantasy Sports Network. I'm joined today by Jay Rung, the head football editor over at Razzball.com. You can follow him on Twitter at JayRung, Jay Rung. We are going through some of his rankings. Right now, we're getting into the higher tier. You have Zach Stacy going ahead of Monty Ball and Gio Bernard. He's got a history of nagging injuries. He only had 3.9 yards per carry last year, and Trey Mason's looked pretty sweet in OTAs. You got to justify this one for me, brother.
Yeah, I think I just like him more. I mean, obviously with my ranking, I think Trey Mason's still a little bit raw. I don't think he's a good third down blocker yet. And Zach Stacy has shown that he can be successful, even going against San Francisco and Seattle's defense 4 times during the season. With Monty Ball and Giovanni Bernard, because it works both ways, I'm not as high on them just because with Ball, I'm still not convinced that he's solved his fumbling issues. I'd like to see him carry a little bit more. And I think the Denver offense takes a step back this season. When you're talking about historic offense, it's historic because it only happens, one in the last, or, it happens rarely. So I don't see that continuing. With Giovanni Bernard, I'm not quite sure what to make of him yet. Last year he showed a lot of promise, but he seemed to have a ceiling. Whether or not that was the law firm's fault, I'm not sure, but I'd like to see how they utilize him more this season. If he's still going to be there for 2 downs, I'm not sure how much he can help you.
Okay, fair enough. DeMarco Murray has people buzzing this year in Dallas, especially with Scott Linehan moving in as the new OC, and Dallas's D is going to be atrocious, but he's only averaged 12 games played the last few years. In his career, you've got him 7th. The ECR is 8. That makes him a first rounder. I can't take a running back in the first round with that kind of injury history, but the upside is tempting. Justify your ranking, please.
Yeah, with him, if he can just find a way to stay healthy, and I know he hasn't yet, but he has a top 5 season in him. I mean, if he probably should try to run more horizontal than vertical too. If we had a fantasy league based on his running up and down the field instead of straight downhill, then he'd probably be first pick overall. But I think that offense is going to be a good offense again. It's always been a good offense, but if he can find a way to be healthy, I think he could even be he could put up top 3 numbers. He has that ability, and he just has to show it.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. I just worry about the injuries. It's hard to argue with your top tier as you have them laid out. You have Marshawn Lynch 6, Matt Forte 5, Eddie Lacy 4, LaShawn McCoy 3, Jamal Charles 2, and Adrian Peterson number 1. So I'm not going to argue with you on that. My question is, which one of these guys is most likely to miss time, and if so, who could emerge in his place?
That's it's so hard to figure out. I'll say this. I don't think it's an injury, but I think we could see a Marshawn Lynch maybe take a step back this season, and maybe a Christine Michael to take some sharehold of those touches. Just because he's getting a little older, I don't want to predict demise for a guy like that. But there's a lot of mileage on those legs. So
I'm not going to argue with you on that. In fact, I'm going to agree, and I'll even take it a step forward. That line is spectacular in Seattle. There is a ton of mileage on Marshawn Lynch. I love him, but I think, A, they're going to have to work Kristen Michael in more. B, if Lynch does go down, Kristen Michael could be a top 5 running back in the NFL this year. Get him late. He is Jay Wrong, the head football editor over at Razzball.com, where you can find all his rankings.